Please welcome Professor Milton Mermikides.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for coming tonight and supporting me through this series and the whole 3 years. It's been a privilege and a joy of a lifetime. So, sleep and music, eh? What brings these together, apart from I seem not to get enough of either of them? But there are these connections between sleep and music, these deep parallels that seem to recur. They both seem essential, foundational to being human. Of course, physiologically, we need sleep, but psychosocially, for good mental health and to connect with others, we need music. So it has this essential quality. Also, both sleep and music leave us somewhat defenseless, vulnerable. Of course, when you're asleep, you're physically unsafe. But also, you leave yourself unguarded to all the emotions, your deep fears and lusts come out both in sleep and in music. So our guards are let down for that menagerie of emotions that arrive. Both of them pull back the conscious curtain. We go behind that door of the conscious self. What's extraordinary is that whilst we're making music and making dreams, we are both the creator and the audience. Somehow we separate ourselves from ourselves. So it brings about this altered state, but what I call auto-creativity. We are making things for ourselves, and any musician will tell you they get surprised, even the most learned composer, by what comes out of them. We scoop from that same subjective well. And they both have this secret logic to them. There's a sort of dream grammar and a musical grammar. And if you try and explain a dream afterwards, it made so much sense at the time, but afterwards it's just nonsense. It was a man, but it wasn't really a man. Same with music. You can't really explain why that chord works. You just know it does. And there was these parallels between the segue and these lateral references and the literal nonsense and the intuitive sense that both of them make, a sort of meta-logic. And perhaps most importantly, both of them are a sort of journey. We leave our physical bodies and our temporal realities, passing through some gatekeeper. Sometimes it's a struggle to get through, but we enter this parallel world, realm crossing. So these five, alongside an altered sense of time, gives us this essence of what connects sleep and music, which I'd like to explore this evening. The ancient Greeks have these myths. Orpheus, for example, had to put to sleep the fearsome three-headed dog Cerberus. He doesn't look so fearsome there. I was expecting a little more, but there you go. And so this idea that the altered state, the sense of crossing a realm is evident here. And same again with the myth of Hermes, who lulled to sleep the many-eyed giant Argos in order to rescue across that threshold. And Plato was said to be able to put animals to sleep with his music, probably in a good way. And there he is laying down some sick organ riffs. But in the visual arts also, we have this wonderful sense of the collision between the two. I love this, Sleeping Gypsy from Rousseau, because what we get here is a portrait of a gypsy asleep. She's got her instrument there, and then there's a line, so there's the sense of unsafeness, but also we feel like she's dreaming and we're looking at it as if she's in a dream, so it has this strange meta-logic to it. And Rousseau loved conjuring these sort of worlds, like in Le Rêve, the dream, this wonderful, strange garden we find ourselves. And he wrote this inscription upon it. where he says, in a beautiful dream, having drifted softly to sleep, heard the sound of a reed pipe played by a kindly snake charmer. As the moon shone on river and verdant leaf, the wild serpents lent an ear to its joyful melodies. How beautiful. And if you haven't noticed the reed pipe player before, here he is. Hello. So sleep and music are intertwined. And so it's no surprise, really, that composers have long been bringing the feeling of sleep into their music, the representation of it. How is this done? Well, there's a whole family of music forms like reveries, nocturnes, lullabies, and berceuse, which are evoking the feeling of sleepiness, of dreams. And they tend to have similarities within them, family traits, let's say. So, for example, we get an unprescribed structure, not a strict AABA form, not a wild one, but one that follows its own logic. There's a repetitive flow and a sort of rhythmic sway that happens, and what I'll call emotional liminality, which is that we can go to the edge of sadness and the edge of joy in a single phrase. There's blurred grid lines and timbres. And then there's something which there's no name for it. I called it a transharmonic melody, which is a melody that seems to just float and soar. It always agrees with the chords, but it's not prescribed by them. It's like this happy accident that seems to be happening. And then these unprepared color changes that happen so out of nowhere, a sort of magic. So let's unearth how this dreaminess is made. A classic of this genre is Debussy's Reverie, so let's sort of unweave the dreaminess within it. It starts with the simple opening set of notes. 4 notes coming up, and then they descend. So 4 notes ascending and descending. That makes 6, so he could have done this, a 6/8 rhythm, just up and down, and called it a day, because it sounds perfectly lovely. But for a little more sway, maybe we should make one of the notes longer, which makes it fit into a binary meter. Lovely, but it's not quite it. Because the genius thing he does with this simple 4 notes is he slides them over by half a beat, as if we're slipping away from waking life. You wouldn't know hearing the introduction, but when the melody comes in, it inserts itself at this realm between notes. There. Is it magic? And let's talk about that wonderful melody. The white notes here are prescribed by the accompaniment, so they're set. But Debussy has freedom when it comes to those other notes. He could have made them sad, flatter and sad. Or he could have made them bright and positive. But what he does with emotional liminality is he mixes happy and sad in one gliding, soaring melody. And therein the magic lies. What about the chords? Well, not to give you a 35-minute analysis, I'll just say this. We can get some sense of how chords feel by where they sit on the circle of fifths. If they crowd near the root, it feels very grounded and safe. If they start spreading out, they feel uneasy. If they drop below this diatonic boundary, you'll get a sense of mystery. That's all I need to say, and I'll play you a little bit. Wait for it. There you go. some tenderness and coolness and a little mystery offset. So he's painting with these emotional colors, and they just feel so deliciously dreamy. So it's no wonder that this sort of sleep placed in music finds its way in a way to lull us to sleep. So not sleep in music, but music for sleep. And in fact, one of the earliest pieces of musical text we've discovered is this clay tablet, 4,000 years old, which is a lullaby. It's the lyrics. We don't have the music to lull a child to sleep. Actually, the title of it is Ritual to Quiet a Child, which sounds a bit more desperate and instructional. But lullabies are these incredible musical forms. For a start, every culture that has music, which is every culture on earth, has a lullaby. So it's universal. And although they're very diverse, we humans are very good at telling what a lullaby is, even from another culture, even when we don't know the language. Yes, they work on infants and they reduce their arousal levels, heart rate, and pupil size. But what's interesting is that they also do so for unfamiliar lullabies from different cultures as well. So we've built this language to lull. But there's this other edge to the lullabies which isn't often talked about, which is that it's an emotional release for the caregivers also. Because singing lullabies is a way to calm and regulate our own emotions. It slows breathing and it promotes bonding. And across many traditions, it's a socially acceptable space to vent, essentially, to share anxieties and frustrations, grief, and so on. When the bow breaks, they're a useful outlet. So beneath this tenderness, there's warnings, laments, and these darker themes that emerge. The emotional burdens of caregiving. Take this ancient Cumbrian or Welsh or both lullaby, Dinigon Smock, where the lyrics talk about a father in the past sense. So is there grief to it attached? But they also include instructions of where to find food. So perhaps it has dual purposes of instructional and both keeping a memory alive. My very first lecture here, I shared this lullaby from the Solomon Islands, which is not a lullaby from a parent to a child, but from an older sibling to a younger sibling when their parents have passed away. It's utterly stunning and beautiful. It says, "Do not cry, little one, though our parents have left this world, they still watch over us. Their presence lingers in every corner of the house, every shadow of the garden, and within this endless lullaby, I sing to you." Those descending fifths. Actually, since I presented this in the first lecture, I've had several people saying that they've used this lullaby for their own children, which is really gratifying. What I didn't mention in the first lecture, which I can't get off my chest, is that this sample, which was the first portable tape recorder, ethnomusicological collection, the sample was used by this electronic dance band in the 90s without permission, without credit, without remuneration, and misattributed to the Pygmy people of Central Africa, which is about 5,000 miles away. And to make matters worse, they won the best World Music Prize for this. I don't know why I said that, it's depressing. But we should take care of such treasures, I believe. But lullabies also hold up this cultural mirror. For centuries, there's been a culture of very young girls in Japan being sent out to babysit, to become nursemaids. Look at them in this image. They're hardly older than the children they're babysitting. And so their lullabies are full of homesickness, loneliness, and resentment. This gets me. Hush now, little one, do not cry. Though you cry, I cannot feed you. And it's fair that they should share these resentments. But I love this one. It's delicious. My mistress is like an unripe persimmon. It's kind of a fruit. Beautiful to look at, but bitter inside. On a happier note, the Aka tribe of Central Africa have a real communal sense of caregiving. And Aka fathers are the most physically involved with infants of any society studied, spending almost half the time within arm's reach of their children. And the lullaby reflects that. Listen to that interwoven, beautiful, familial spirit. Oh, it's gorgeous. And the legacy continues. We've used technology now to lull ourselves to sleep with apps on our own playlists and so on. We're making our own lullabies. And I feel that the strange habit of listening to true crime at bedtime is just an extension of that, of when the bough breaks, a reminder to be safe. So we've created music to send us to sleep, but does music exist whilst we're asleep? Well, this is the interesting thing. When we cross the boundary from wakefulness to sleep, we shut our eyes, but we cannot shut our ears. So our brain has to somehow act as a gatekeeper to decide what sounds come in. Of course, it lets in things that could be sounds that could indicate physical danger. It lets in easily our own name. But it turns out it also lets music in. Our brains respond to the harmonies and the rhythms of the music we're listening to even when we're asleep. But not only that, we carry music with us into our sleep and dreams. Most of all, musicians will know this, that there's the music anxiety dream. I still have exam nightmares. I had a nightmare that I was late for my daughter's exam, so it never ends. But musicians have a particular anxiety dream. Here's some examples taken from friends and colleagues. A recurrent nightmare where I'm on stage and my mind is empty, can't find the music anywhere, quite standard. I can't get to the stage on a cruise ship, weird, and also all the toilets are engaged. So it's this surreal specificity that happens, that you have to remember that point. This is when it gets fun. I'm in a concert performing something I haven't practiced at all, and I'm wearing my mum's gardening trousers. So there's this accumulation, and it usually involves trousers. I'm about to play the Rodrigo guitar concerto, walk on stage, and sit down to find I have a trombone in my hands instead of a guitar. I want to hear that. And perhaps my favorite, short and sweet, playing guitar naked. I don't even play guitar. So a double humiliation there. And if you've never had a musical anxiety dream, these 30 seconds are the perfect encapsulation of it.
What's the matter? I've never played this before. What are you talking about? I've never played this piece before. I've never practiced it. I don't know. It's Princeton. It's great. I don't know it. I've never played it. You're gonna love it. I've never even heard it. It's for Rostropovich. What does that have to do with anything? You'll be fine. But where are your pants?
That specific thing when someone asks you, but it's for Rostropovich. But we also in our dreams have more musical ecstatic dreams. Just as strange, but more inspiring. I've tried to cobble together the ones that I had when I was a teenager, which was sort of like this, and the music like this. It's nonsense, but it's beautiful. Beautiful. And here is a collection of anecdotes from these dreams. Yes, I had a dream that I was in a quintet and the trumpet player was absolutely burning. So you get there straight ahead. People are amazing dreams. But then you get advice from artists. I had a dream where Bowie taught me how to write music using samples. Apparently, I got the composer to explain to me, you think of the samples as harmonies, functioning dominant chords. And apparently this composer wrote lots of pieces, got his master's thesis out of it, thanks to a dream, and Bowie maybe, I'm not sure. I remember once collaborating with Drake in a dream, and the song was very vivid and catchy. However, when I woke up, it was gone. And I also remembered I don't like Drake at all. I was jamming with Jimi Hendrix and Eric Johnson. I wasn't playing my best. The even-numbered strings were missing, of course. But they complimented me on my tone feel, which was, think of the phrase, takes one to know one, so I just started jumping. And then I was playing some big concert with Pat Metheny and improvising. Woke up pretty sad that was only a dream. Lines carried on sounding in my mind for a little while, but I didn't manage to take down more than a few notes before they disappeared. And this is interesting. There's a sense of evasion when it comes to these ideas before they disappeared. Would it be possible for us to somehow tap that well more deeply and gather music from sleep itself and all the strange imagination it holds that we can't seem to grasp in our waking life? Well, examples abound of composers inspired by dreams. The most famous perhaps is Tartini, the Italian composer who lived at the time of J.S. Bach, who had a dream that he was visited by the devil who granted him any wish. And so Tartini wanted to hear him play the violin, so he handed him a violin. And the devil started playing with such exquisite art and technique that he was completely floored. And he woke up immediately and grabbed some manuscript paper to try and capture this glorious music. But he said it was the best music he ever wrote. But it was so inferior to what he had heard in the dream itself that if he didn't need it to do music for a living, he would have broken his violin and given up completely. But still, we have this wonderful piece by Tartini from that dream in 1713. Or Hector Berlioz, whose Symphonie Fantastique is essentially a seminal large-scale dream. Based on his own visions, it tells of a protagonist, an artist who has an opium-induced hallucinations in 5 movements, and the artist falls in love and then eventually witnesses his own execution and crosses to a realm beyond. And there's this one theme that just recurs and recurs in a very dream logic status. It's a sort of strange musical self-portrait inspired by a dream but put into a dream itself. Jimi Hendrix was, throughout his career, inspired by one particular dream of his mother, who was riding a camel through a wooded area, and he describes really vividly the light coming through the trees and dappling on her face. And he wrote Little Wing with some deference to her, but particularly Angel, just a few months before he too passed. And he says that he never would forget that dream.
I never did forget. There's some dreams you never forget.
Probably the most famous and lucrative pop song that came out of a dream is Sir Paul's. I'll let him explain.
I woke up one morning and there was this tune in my head, and I happened to have a piano by my bed. It was a little a apartment. And so, what's this? What is this? So I thought it's just some old tune my dad must have played, or I've just heard it yesterday, you know. And so I went round to all my friends, to John first. What's this? What's this tune? You go, I don't know. So I went to George Martin, a producer. George, what's this? You know a lot of songs. What's this? He said, I don't know. So after about a couple of weeks, I decided it was mine.
And no one came out of the woodwork.
Music can also trigger dream memories. The guitarist Joe Satriani, during a period of personal loss and great stress, picked up a guitar which happened to be in this strange tuning and played a couple of chords that just fell onto his fingers. And was instantly brought back to a time in his youth where he was having this recurring dream when he was flying in a blue dream, in fact. And so he composed this piece, and it's all about realm crossing. You can hear the floaty Lydian nature. The unprepared modulations. But he also picks up feedback from the feedback goddess, he calls it, and also stray radio signals on his guitar pickup, like he's channeling other realms. I just want to hear some of his legato, please, 1 second. Okay, good. Now, I could go on for ages talking about artists and composers who have attributed dreams to their music, and I would like to, but I think it's more important to say that music comes to everybody in their dreams. Meet Jennifer. You won't know her as a musician. She is an administrative assistant at OHSU's Night Cancer Institute. Excellent job. And she misses music.
I want to play music again. Anybody want to start a band with me? Please?
So she wants to do music. She used to learn violin, and she misses it terribly because work got in the way. So she has a dream of starting a band, but more than that, she has a dream of music, a particular music. She dreams about the sound of Earth from space. She has it about once a month, and the beating of drums and wood and metal and making these melodies and harmonies. Now, she hasn't got the language to say it, but it's really perfectly described, growing quiet as my view travels away from the pale blue dot into the void beyond. She can close my eyes now. I hear the melodies in my head. They sound like every tune I have ever heard, at the same time something new, which is a beautiful way of putting it. Very Queen-like in the multi-track nature of the harmonies. And one can only imagine what she heard. It was privy to herself, and she must have composed it. And perhaps we all compose in our dreams. So today I'm announcing the start of, please, the DMRA, the Dream Music Retrieval Agency, where anybody can come to this agency and get their dream music retrieved with the help of composers, techniques, and training in lucid dreaming and so on. So I've done an initial sketch for her using her descriptions, so maybe we can listen to a little of Jennifer's music.
Sister, 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 sister.
So we can draw music from sleep, but we can go further still, because perhaps we can dip into sleep itself and see what music it has. What do I mean by this? Well, we have rhythms for our sleep. If we are sleeping well, lucky you, what happens is you sleep the same time every night, and there's something that guides our sleep. It's sort of like this siren that calls us, which is our melatonin peak. If our melatonin peak happens at the right point, it keeps us in check. So what I've done here is circle real data of a good sleep and played notes for the nighttime sleep, daytime sleep, and where the melatonin peak lies. And you can hear how consistent and consonant it is. A little bit of a nap, cheeky. Go on, have another nap. Oh, never mind. You can see how even those melatonin peaks are. And if we drag it out like this, you can see there's a stable melatonin peak and nice sleep. I am jealous. However, there's many things that fight us these days. But there's one inbuilt issue, is that although there's a day clock is 24 hours, for some goddamn reason, our body clocks are slightly longer, 24.5. So without the help of the melatonin adjustment, calibration, we tend to get to sleep later and later each night. So we start sounding like Steve Reich. Add to that artificial lights, caffeine, and Netflix, and it's a disaster. So, and what comes out of such a night's sleep sounds more like Steve Reich than consonant music. Wrong place to have a peak. Now you'll hear it phase. More interesting musically there. That's some consolation. You're sleeping terribly, but you sound great. So if we drag this out, what's beautiful is that you can actually see that curve that occurs. There you go. Come on. There you go. And that's sort of what a lot of us are fighting, is this Steve Reich drift. But we should also discuss not just when we sleep, but how we sleep. And I don't know if you've seen this polysomnography or PSG. It's basically a sleep study which takes from a sleeping patient a number of data streams, breathing, where you are in your sleep, in the depth of your sleep, movement with your legs, and so on. And it turns it into what they call a score. I'll zoom it in here. So this PSG data is coming in. It's having, over time, these events. Now, anyone who's done any music will suddenly see that it looks exactly like a score. It looks like Perez, actually, with his blockiness. So what happens if we take sleep, put this data in, and pass it through a system where it spits out instrumentation on the other side? Where we sleep is a flute melody. It seems right. It tells us how long we sleep, and we fall asleep down a scale. Breathing issues, apnea and so on, can be percussion and pits. It seems right that oxygen transfer is a string ensemble, wide open chords when good, close clusters when poor. Our body position, a bass line, and so on. And what's extraordinary is that I can feed this data into the system, and without caressing any of the effects, it sounds like the sleep that the person is having. This is real data and a real translation here. So we've got flute, percussion, flute playing how deep we're falling asleep, percussion and pits if there are any breathing issues. Strings is nice and open here with a wide open transfer. And how we move is the bass line, which doesn't move very much. And we get sort of filmic music here. Oh, you lucky bastard. See how easily it goes to sleep. dreaming here. A little breath with a dream. Falls asleep again. Shuffles around the bed. Nice bass line. Rolls to the right-hand side. Wakes up for a moment, but back in. A nice long dream now. Seems to have breathing issues when dreaming, so you can kind of hear and diagnose at the same time. Let's take a sadly contrasting example, someone with sleep apnea, which is deep problems with breathing during the night. You'll notice here that in the flute melody, it hardly ever falls fully asleep, so it has this frustrated melody that doesn't cadence, loads of percussion and pits, and then this thick Penderecki type chords. And you'll see also that for snoring, I gave it to the timpani for some reason. And what you get is basically mid-20th century modernist music. Who doesn't like this dream here? A lot of wakefulness, snatches of sleep. There. Whoa. Again, the collision of the dream and the breath. Not noticed that before. What's extraordinary is I know this person's night's sleep, which was just one night, like I know a piece of Bach now. Restless leg syndrome is another extreme sleep condition. What I've done is given leg movements to the wood block, so you'll get that timpani for the snoring again. But what's fun is that the person here forgot to put their sensor on for their breathing, and you can see them rapidly put it on there, and you get a lovely harp glissando at that moment. Look at that body movement in the bass line. Bass shouldn't move so much. And this insistent light level sleep, which seems to mirror the experience. But we can go deeper still. Because sleep itself is not just falling, it's just not 4 stages. As we know, there are different qualities of sleep and different ways of getting to sleep. It turns out that rather than this 4-stage system, it's more like a network of states that interlink together. And it's like a labyrinth. You can go, there are dead ends, there are one-way streets. There are 19 states to be in. If you want to get to the deeper state, you have to go through a certain pathway through it. You can see these arrows here. So, for example, somebody might start at 4, go to 15, back to 4, 15, and then jump across to a deeper state like this. And when a friend showed me this, it struck me how similar this is to harmonic diagrams. This is an analysis of the film composer James Horner, who uses these sort of techniques intuitively to create these wonderful pathways. And he too has 2-direction likelihood, 1 direction less likely, and so on, connections between points. So you might go from between D and F sharp minor and occasionally jump from F sharp minor to F, which is a more magical movement here. So guess what? We can map these likelihood of motion between chords to sleep states so that getting deeper asleep has a sort of harmonic cadence to it. And this feels like a magical move. So this gives us not just music, but a template to make music. For example, if we start awake and we want to end up with a deeper sleep, we have multiple pathways to get there. And in fact, I've just written a code that uses the same chances of moving on, and it can generate music for as long as you want to. This is the first one that was made with it. Dead end. But we can go further still, because when we sleep, our brains are making waveforms, many, many waveforms. So the idea of sleep stages are actually decoded from multiple waveforms of brain activity, electrical activity. So we have what's called EEG data, electroencephalograms, that are basically saved as audio files, so you can play them back if you're feeling brave. And there are various ranges, like an equalizer, graphic equalizers, to do with various experiences whilst dreaming and awake. Some we can listen to, some go too low. So, for example, here's the gamma band associated with sort of light level sleep and wakefulness. And then we'll go to the beta, and then it'll disappear, even though it's playing. Unless you happen to be a blue whale, in which case good luck to you getting home. Oh, hold on to your trousers, your gardening trousers. Anyone hear that? I can't. You can hear them all together, though. Excuse me a second. So how do we get to hear these waves without bringing them up octaves? Well, in fact, music has this trick, because we can turn frequency of a pitch into a frequency of change of something else. So we take a carrier signal, like a chord, and we can slow it, we can make it go loud and soft at the speed of the waveform. So here we can get a sense of how it feels to go into deep sleep as we go from theta to delta rates. It starts to gap like a guitar fretboard. So we could take the pure waveforms that are coming out of our brains whilst we sleep, and using the right tools and filters and some techniques, turn those waveforms into, I'll call it music, but it's sound design at least. And what I want you to do is see if you can tell the difference between different states of sleeping. They will be marked at the bottom. Good luck, and see you in 1 minute. I must bring to your attention the fact that sleep does in fact have another sibling in Greek mythology, that of death. And they seem to come together, sleep, death, and music, in this triptych with a special bond. Hypnos was the god of sleep, Thanatos of death, siblings in Greek mythology. What do these all share? Well, they have a realm, let's say, beyond the waking world, beyond the physical body, and beyond the self. Yet somehow music seems to remain present through all of them. We see this in the composers who were interned in the Second World War, like Victor Ullmann, the composer who was taught by Schoenberg, spent 5 years in a concentration camp. And as he said, it served to enhance, not to impede, his musical activities or will to live. On the left is a piece he wrote shortly before he was murdered in Auschwitz. Yet there's something of his spirit that remains on the page and can't be held in by those walls. So, sleep allows us to hold on to ourselves when ourselves no longer exist. And it seems that music also serves this function. It's something that we can cling on to as we pass through different realms and different experiences in life. This was in lyrics found in Gorecki's Symphony No. 3, which is inspired by an inscription on the walls of a concentration camp. And it's astonishing to me how much hope and joy lies in music in this world. Thank you so much.